Recording. So, hi everyone. Um, uh, Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mayank Kadrawal, who is a research associate professor of industrial and system engineering at the University of Southern California and a principal scientist at the USC Information Scientist Institute. Dr. Kadrawal's research lies at the intersection of artificial intelligence, knowledge graphs, and the natural language processing. He directs research efforts focused on neural symbolic AI and the real-world AI deployment, with applications ranging from scientific discovery to social good. He has authored several books, including an MIT Press textbook on knowledge graphs that has been translated in many languages, and his work has been published extensively in leading AI and data science venue. Today, he will share insights from his work in AI-enabled scientific workflow in his talk. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mayank Kadrawal. Okay,
All right. Thank you so much, Liu. First of all, thank you everyone for coming and for having me. Hopefully everyone can hear me clearly. Everything is fine. Let me know if not. Um, all right. So the way I'd like to begin is I want to really make this very useful to all of you and introduce you to some of the tools that we have been using and that we have also built. But we also use other tools that we incorporate. And so I really want to give you a workflow of what we're doing, how we're, writing grants, especially, which I don't think many of us enjoy doing. So I hope to show you a way that you can write grants much quicker um, using material that you already have as your IP. And so, just a little bit, I'll just begin with 1 to 2 slides very briefly about me, but then I will jump to much more practical um, demo. And I hope that, for those of you who have a machine with you, a laptop, right, that we can follow along and that you might even do it with me so I can show you, how we do it. Um, so let me just begin very briefly by um, talking about like some of my own work. So as you pointed out, I have joint appointments in USC Viterbi, where I run a group called Artificial Intelligence and Complex Systems, or AICS. So this is kind of our website, and it sort of shows you who's in our group and what papers we're publishing and projects and all of that. But just to give you a very brief summary, right over here, a lot of my projects are funded by DARPA. They're all unclassified. We're not. This is not sort of military. Classified work. It's bread and butter research, fundamental research. Some of the problems I'm very interested in that I've worked on for almost 10 years now is how do we use AI and technology to fight human trafficking, which is a passion project. It is something that I have never given up on since 2016 when I first started working on this. But we also like to work on fundamental AI problems like machine common sense. How do we get AI? How do we know that the LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, have common sense? Seems like a very hard, um, uh, an easy question in a way, but a very hard problem actually, because we have to define what common sense is, and that turns out to be a hard problem. But we've done work with Kaiser Permanente on patient-centered healthcare. I have some other healthcare projects with some tech professors on autism. These are NIH R01 projects. Some of you may be on those as well in your department. So we are a very interdisciplinary group, actually. We like using technology to solve novel problems, and we love working with domain experts. So people who are really experts in their subject matters, and we try to team up with them to use technology. Uh, because we are domain agnostic in a way. We are not experts in a given domain. So we defer to the domain experts and try to use technology to help them the best way we can. Um, and the other thing I will point to before I go into the demo and showing you our workflow is that we are very collaborative, and I say this because when we use all these tools, we are very mindful of the fact that it's not just about us. We have to work with a lot of other people some of whom prefer other tools, which is fine. So, very often we're thinking about, how do we use the right tools for the right projects? So everything I'm going to show you today, we have built it in a way that you can pick and choose what you want to do with it. Like you should not feel like, that you have to do everything in or everything that I'm showing you today, that you have to do all of that the way that I'm saying it, obviously, right? But you can pick and choose that, hey, this part that he's saying is interesting. Maybe I can use it for my project. This part, I would just prefer to keep it traditional, the way that I do it normally. So that is just something that to bear in mind, as we go through this, I really hope that you will pick and choose the things that make sense to you in the things that I will show you. So I will stop sharing my slides now and I will switch to the actual workflow. And here, I'm going to start with a blank browser. So if you're watching this and you have a laptop, I hope you will follow with me because I really want you to use the workflow and try out the workflow for yourself. So that if there are questions, you can really ask me over here and we will answer your questions. And if there's something that doesn't make sense, if there's something you want to do speak up. I really hope we can make this interactive. Um, so the workflow that we use is built on a platform called Grail. And, this is a page that is a platform that is available on the web. So, you just have to type grail.page and you should see it. Now, sometimes, when we run it on the VPN, USC VPN, there is some small probability that you might see a secure error connection. So if you do see that, do let us know now and we will try to resolve it. But if you are on a laptop, you should see this page. And it is basically an agentic LaTeX editor. So for many of you, if you are familiar with LaTeX, if you have used Overleaf, um, we are big users of Overleaf. I have hundreds of projects in Overleaf. And one of the things that I saw was that, sometimes we spend a lot of time correcting errors, dealing with formatting issues, even things like, where I have a paper and I want to write a grant, an NSF grant based on my paper. I'm not worried about self plagiarism because in NSF grants, you are allowed to self plagiarize from your own papers, your own figures. It's not going to be published anywhere. So how can I do that very easily so I have more time to mentor my students and to do actual research and not spend too much time on the boilerplate? Um, yeah, so the website is grail.page for yeah, if could you if you have a chance, if you're still seeing an error, could you maybe put the screenshot here and we'll quickly look into it. Um, But yes, this is the page. An alternative page that might work, it will go to the same website, is innovi.pro. Uh, so this is one you could try as well if the Grail.page doesn't work in the instance. But yes, please do put in a screenshot if it doesn't work. We know there is sometimes a secure connection error problem with VPNs, which we are trying to work through. But if it works for others, uh, oh, great. Awesome. Um, then, we can go to app. Now, when I go to app, um, okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking into the Grail.page. We're glad the NOI.pro worked. That's why we did it. We kind of that was kind of our solution. For some reason, the Grail.page does run into VPN level issues at times. Okay, so now when you log in, you won't see this page. You will actually see a one-click sign up. You can do it through Google. You can do it through email. When you do it, it will take you to our LaTeX editor. This is the default editor. Like after you log in the second time, you will see this kind of editor, which kind of it looks like Overleaf, right? It has a new project. These buttons are hopefully familiar if you've used Overleaf, but there's things in here that are not in Overleaf. For example, this AI agent over here. We also have a chat. This is powered by Gemini. So if it's completely free, you can actually start a lot of conversations here. Hopefully the interface is very familiar because of the chat GPT and all of that. But the thing that I'm very excited about that I really want to show you in depth is our LaTeX project editor. So when we click on this, this is the interface that you should see when you first get in for the first time. It's a blank page. Um, it looks a little bit like Overleaf, but it's not quite, because one of the things you see here is in the Overleaf, we have the editor on the left. So typically you have the LaTeX editor, right? And where it's all code, right? So our PhD students especially are very familiar with this. And then the PDF is usually on the right with Overleaf, right? So just to remind everyone, when we go to Overleaf, as you can see, I have a lot of projects in Overleaf as well. But when I go to one of our recent papers that we submitted, this is what it looks like. So it's very code heavy, right? You write the code on the left and then it compiles on the right. And if you run into trouble, it can be very difficult to know what to do. Many people copy paste from ChatGPT into Overleaf, right? And from Google Scholar into Overleaf and so on. That's a problem we're trying to solve. So the nice thing about this is you can directly tell the agent what to do and it will insert it into the LaTeX for you. So you don't have to go to the editor. You could if you want, we're giving you full control. But, so here I could write, for example, and by the way, if anyone has prompts that they want to share, I'm more than happy to try prompts here that you want to share on the chat if you're not in the interface yourself. But I'm just going to start with something that I'm familiar with, which is, yes, I think it is getting recorded, Jess. I believe you is recording the session, but we're absolutely fine with recording and keeping it for posterity. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Oh,
okay, so
yes,
yeah,
just recorded. Just some side
all
notes.
right.
Yeah,
Great, great. So,
record.
here, yeah. So here I'm going to type in, help me, write an intro on knowledge graphs, specifically write a paragraph on what knowledge graphs are from an academic perspective. Now, this is again very useful for grants, for papers. Sorry, I clicked on the microphone button, which, by the way, you can also talk to the platform if you don't want to type. It should work well. But like here, right? Like I've given it a prompt. What it will now do is that it is actually thinking and telling you what it's doing. But notice how it's able to access the files in the project. And the reason why this is so important is because it will directly modify the PDF. So here it's asking me, would you like me to insert this into your introduction section as is? Like it's showing me the introduction, right? And I can say that, yeah, option one, right? Suppose. Or I can just tell it what I want. You can talk to the agent very naturally, just like you talk to ChatGPT. It will understand. It is powered by one of the latest language models. So it will understand everything you're saying. Now, notice how it auto-compiled. I didn't have to click any button. And so it just appears right over here. You can actually drag and drop files into it. So for example, one of the things I'm going to do is that and I'll show you some example projects to show you how we use it. But it has this. Now it also gives you, what can you do next, right? You can do you want to expand the introduction? um, so for example, it auto fills the prompt, but I can also fill in my own prompt if I want. Before I go into this, the other thing I want to show you is that you also have this view changes button. When you click on this, it will actually show you what is changed. So this again is very useful if you want to really know at a very fine-grained level, what has it added, what has it removed. So this is one other feature, so you have control over it. Now you can always go to the editor and do things on your own. You do not have to use the agent. Sometimes, I've received, some professors have told me, well, like the AI is writing the paper, is that like, how do I, we don't want the AI to write the paper. I say, I absolutely agree with you. We do not want the AI to write the paper. So you should use the AI in a responsible way, right? And hopefully we are training our students to do that, right? Because we can't really police it, right? If the PhD student or someone goes to ChatGPT and writes something and puts it inside the platform or inside Overleaf, we can't, I mean, how do we control that really, right? We have to rely on honesty. But what the AI will do is that it will help you in whatever way you want it to. So Here, okay, I'm asking you to expand it. Normally I would not write a paper this way, but I would write a grant this way if I was writing a grant or knowledge graph, right? So it's going to expand this. Um, you will see the change appear directly over here. Again, it will auto compile when it's done. So let me first work on, first let it do this, and then I'll show you a couple of other cool features. By the way, the other thing is you just like Overleaf, you can upload files, you can create folders and files. This is very similar to these buttons over here. So we want you to be comfortable in the interface. We don't want you to relearn something that you're already familiar with. Similarly, you have the file outline. You can see it's significantly expanded the the introduction, right? I can now get it to write a preliminary section, let's say where I want to define knowledge graph, etc. Um, but does it only do writing? And actually, here is where the platform really meets its power because it does much more than just write. And I want to show you now a couple of really advanced features. Um, Before I do the advanced features, I do want to point out that you can always start new conversations. So if you click on plus, you will get a new conversation. This is especially useful to divide your work up. So let's say I might say, okay, I want a conversation where I'm working on the intro. I want a conversation where I'm working on the method, or maybe I'm cleaning up the paper. Sometimes for many of you who might be familiar with the more journal system, we revise the paper, we have to highlight all the changes, but then we have to produce the unhighlighted version. And that's like a chore, right? And sometimes you miss the bracket and the overleaf throws a fit, right? You can just ask the agent to do that. Like, hey, can you just make a copy of my text file and remove all the highlights? And it will literally do that. It will make the copy and do that. Um, the other thing is you can always go back to your previous conversations, right? So when you click on this history button over here, this will show you all your previous conversations. So I can go back to my previous conversation and I can continue from there if I want. Um, there is a setting button. I mean, we don't recommend actually changing anything over here, but for the more advanced, you can actually add your own commands. This is useful if there are certain commands that you find yourself reusing a lot. So you can actually configure and add your own command. So I encourage you to try this out as well. And then finally, there's a share button here. You can always invite collaborators. You can, for example, if I invite myself through a different email, I can view, edit, or administrate. Administrate means that you can add other users, whereas the editor can edit, but they are not allowed to add other users. That is one of the big changes with the thing. But you can always collaborate. Um, the other thing we have is the version history. So you can see over here that all the versions are showing up over here. So if you ever need to revert, right, you can just revert. So here I can click on this button. And if I do that, then this should revert to, if I compile now. So it doesn't auto compile after reverting, but yeah, so you can see it reverted right back. You can even revert over here, like, if you click on this button here, it will undo changes to that point. So all of this is to say that you have a lot of control over what it does. If it does something you don't like, you can revert back. You can look at the plus minus, the view changes, and all of that. And you can choose not to use the AI agent at all to make any changes, just to summarize or do something, if you want very fine-grained control. You can then download the PDF. You could, download the whole project as a zip. Like preprint servers like Archive really need something like this, right? Where you need the whole project as the archive zip. You can always contact us. We kind of have built this thing. So I am just one direct message away if you ever have any problems with this, or even if you have feature requests. So this is a very basic tutorial initially. Before I show you two advanced features, let me just stop for questions if there are any on this.
I have just a quick question from like a paper writing or grant writing perspective. I mean, certainly with paper writing, there's an increasing push to acknowledge the use of AI and really to ensure, I think, that papers are not largely written by AI. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of grants, there's also like NIH's policy is a little bit weird. It's not super clear or straightforward, but I just kind of wonder what your thoughts are on, I guess, the ethics of
Yeah.
using AI in these spaces.
It's a great question. What's very interesting is that initially, right, a lot of the conferences and grant agencies were saying that AI was not allowed at all, right, or very minimally, like a spell check or something like that. In some agencies like DARPA, they have now said that, look, we are fine with AI, but you are responsible for the content. So we're okay if you want to use a lot of AI, but you're responsible for the content. And DARPA has explicitly actually made this change, and so I have a number of ARPA-like agencies. Also, philanthropic foundations are increasingly making the change by just saying that if you know what your idea is and you can get the AI to write it properly and then you edit, we're not going to police that. So I think increasingly it's moving more towards us being responsible for the content and not, uh, like faking that, hey, we wrote this, but in fact, the 50, 60% of this was boilerplate that was written by AI, or it's just things that I've written before, but I've just got an AI to paraphrase it because I know that half of the grant is going to be my preliminary work. And the best way for me to express that is not to rewrite it, but to put my paper in that contains the preliminary work and to get the AI to paraphrase and put it into paragraphs. And then I edit it. So I totally hear you on the ethics. I think that is very important, and we have to take responsibility for our work. I believe that very strongly, especially now. But I also believe that in the tasks where AI can make our lives a lot easier, more and more agencies and venues are coming on board with that, right? Is saying that, hey, for the writing tasks or for other tasks where you feel like it can really help you and you're sure that is producing the right content, go for it, because it's much easier for us sometimes to verify, right? To read the content than to write the content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. Thanks. I appreciate your insights on that.
Yeah. So let me now show you just a few things on how we've been using it. So for example, over here, so this is
I
actually a
think there's
PNAS.
one.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
might be one more question from Joel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. This is very interesting. I guess I'm just wondering, when you were prompting the generation of the introduction, it seemed that it also gave you, yeah, you can add citations. So I'm just curious, some of the models like ChatGPT tends to have hallucinations, and when you go into
Yes.
citations, the citations look real, but then they're not. So I'm just curious if in this setting we need to be aware of that as well.
It's such a great question. I was about to come to that actually. Let me actually jump ahead. I was going to show you something else, but let me jump to the citations. So I'll go back to the project that we just began, the Knowledge Graph project, uh, or this one actually, the temporary. I didn't rename this by the way, but you can. So I can just call this Knowledge Graph tutorial. Um, so it turns out that we in our group, we have actually done research on a related work generation algorithm, which I mean, so far, and this is going to sound, very hyped up, but it isn't, and we really want you to try it out to see it for yourself. We have built a related work generation algorithm that so far is hallucination free. Now, it won't show you the related work all the way until today. Like, it's more precision oriented than recall oriented. So it will be very careful about which papers to cite. But we do have this tool called Generate Related Work. This is a special tool. It doesn't call the language model directly. It relies on language model, but it doesn't call it directly. The reason why it works well is because we actually ground it in an actual citation database. So we don't return any citations unless it is present in the database or if it's been cited in another paper. So just to give you an example, if we type in that help me write a related work section on knowledge graphs and its applications in healthcare. Now, it will go and do a lot of thinking. So you will see a little blue box that will prop up over here, hopefully, where we should see it in a moment. So the references.bib is empty in this case. Now you can see over here, this may take a while, maybe grab a coffee or take a quick stretch. So this will take, about 5 minutes because it will do a lot of thinking, but we will see the output when it comes back. And the way that you can check for hallucinations, and I really encourage everyone to take us up on this, try out the related work. And the place where you can check for hallucinations that we strongly recommend, even if you're using other AI tools, by the way, is GPT-0. So this, you can, they have this hallucination detector, where you can paste it in. Now, they do charge you after the first 10,000 characters, but it's enough for like one or two papers or one or two related work. I think it's enough. And, when you do type it in, or when you paste it in from Grail into here, right, the related work it will generate, it will kind of show you, which ones it's been able to verify and which ones it wasn't able to verify. In our case, what we found was that typically we are able, the 90% of references that are generated are verified by GPT-0. The 10% that are not verified are typically things like government reports, which are not on Google Scholar, but we have in fact verified that they do exist and that we have a 0% hallucination rate so far. But you shouldn't take our word for it. You should really try it out. We are going to launch, we're going to release a case study, very soon, in a week or two, where we will try out the related work for 20 prompts on all the language models, including the Grail algorithm, and we will release all the data. Like, here are all the references that were generated. This is what the GPT-0 is showing for each one, and what is the hallucination rate. One reason we built this algorithm is because we were finding a lot of hallucinations, and we were very worried about that. And again, we don't want to offload this completely to the AI, but one of the ways in which we have found it very useful is that it does help us to sometimes find references that we have missed on Google Scholar. So this is something that is useful for now. When this completes, I will come back to it. This will run in the background for a few minutes. But the other thing that I want to also show you, which you might find very useful for grants, but also for papers, is, I'll just go to this project over here. So, this is a paper that actually we just published in NPJ Complexity, which is a Nature Partner Journals. By the way, actually over here. So by the way, when you run into an error, right, like when it shows you an error over here, you can just ask the agent, and the agent will actually try to solve this for you. So let's see if it does that. Okay, so here it is. So it's found 18 citations, right? So when we view the findings, you can see it looks like a related work section in at least in computer science. We write sections like this, and other fields are slightly different, but it's directly inserted all the citations. And you can see over here, it's like, okay, biomedical and clinical applications, information extraction, like these are all relevant to knowledge graph. And I deliberately chose healthcare. It also shows you all the BibTeX entries that it will insert into the references.bib. And now it should auto-compile. Okay, it's already auto-compiled. And so you can see over here, right, it's inserted the references, and you have the references.bib over here. What I would do at this point is that I can actually take this, this tech file, right, and I can copy paste this into GPT-0 along with the references. The other thing you can do is that you can download this, this full PDF, right? And then just copy paste into the GPT-0 hallucinations, and you can see for yourself whether it exists or not. But just to show you, maybe one of these, right? Just to convince you that, and I know this is one data point, but you can see that it does exist. So over here, even though it's so many authors, right? And these are the kinds of references on which the regular LLM actually hallucinates. Even the GPT 5.2, 5.3 tend to hallucinate on these kind of references where you have 8 or 9 papers and so on and so forth. So in fact, we do find that, we have captured the reference correctly. And the reason why we're sure about this is because this has not come directly from the language model. This has come from a database or from an existing paper that has cited this paper. So that's one reason why we're sure. But yes, you should check your work and check against GPT-0 always, right? Don't fully take our word for it or for any language model or algorithm that says that they're hallucination free. You should always check. So moving to this, okay, let's see. So we need to have it's given me several options. Let me actually check this. Use a standard document class. So maybe we go for option 2, but actually the right option is that we would need the class file, which you would have to download. But let's see what happens over here. And I'm doing this live. I have no idea, what will work or not work. So that's the great thing about demos. We are trying to figure out. And it's okay. Now it's going to auto compile. Okay, so there's a missing begin dot. Let me actually see what's in the main dot tag actually. Okay, ask agent. But while it's working through this, so this is a package that actually came with a lot of errors when we first did this over here. So while I'm letting this work through here, let me actually go to one of the other projects where I want to show you one more feature that might be useful to you. So that could be, let's say this one. This is a paper that we recently wrote. And so compiling. So this is in the PLOS format. And so yeah, this is the paper. Now we actually we've integrated Paper Nano Banana, which is a state-of-the-art language model for figure generation into the platform. So here, right, I can ask it that, based on the introduction of the paper, could you generate a figure illustrating the key concepts? So what this will do is it will call the paper Nano Banana. It will read the introduction. Again, this will take a couple of minutes as it thinks through it, as it reads the introduction, as it makes the call to the paper Nano Banana. But you'll see what it produces. Again, I don't actually know what it will produce, but we will see it for ourselves once it produces it. So going to another project. So those are two tools, the related work tool, as well as the image generation tool that hopefully you'll find very useful, and also the prompt to PDF. Now, the last thing I'll say is that, we could always, so let's say if we go here, if you're writing a grant, right? One of the ways that you will want to use this tool is that you can drag and drop files in here, just like any other agent, and ask it to create a grant for you. So I am going to just quickly find a paper in one of my existing projects, and I'll just open it up to show you what's in the paper. But just give me a second. I'm just opening up the project in a different place. Okay, so this is, like a very rough draft actually of our paper. But you can see it's a proper, NPJ complexity paper. It has an abstract, has all kinds of things. It's quite a long paper. And suppose I want to write a grant on the basis of this work, and this work is really about what we call estimative uncertainty and LLMs. You don't have to know what that is, but essentially it's when we use words like probably or maybe, like tomorrow it is probably going to rain. How do we actually figure out how the LLM is interpreting that word? So that's kind of what this whole study was about. There's a lot of interesting statistics in this paper, by the way. If you're interested, I could send you the link. But let's say I want to write a grant on this, right? So, actually, I'm just going to create a new project over here, which I can just say, estimative uncertainty grant. Okay, and I'll just make it a blank template. So for the blank template, it will show up in the generic NeurIPS-like template. Now I have dragged in the manuscript over here, right? And I can ask it that, I am trying to write a grant based on this paper. And I'll just talk to it. As a first step, clear out the paper's contents and put in section headers that make more sense for a grant. We could assume something like an NSF grant. Based on this paper, help me come up with ideas for what I could work on next. Okay, so of course, normally I would already know what I want to work on next, right? But here, this is just to like sort of show you that even if you're looking for inspiration or you're looking to put preliminaries into the paper, how you could do that. Now, one other thing I do want to point out is that for the NSF, we don't have it right now publicly available, but I am willing to make it available to all of you if it helps, which is that we have actually created an NSF template that could really help you to write NSF grants. This is something I did because I found that I am planning to submit a few NSF grants. As you can see, we are collaborating with some people already on this, but I'll just show you what my template looks like. This is something I created using Grail by using the NSFPA PPG document. If it's of interest, we would be very happy to do this for NIH as well. So just let me know. I'm very happy to create a template and make it available to your department if you are looking for something like that for an R01 or an R21. But as you can see over here, right, this is the full packet. We provide some instructions in blue text where we say that, okay, here's what you have to do. Use Grail in this way. Read all blue text carefully. Here's how the key personnel is set up in the project. These are some forms that you should fill out externally. So NSF provides official fillable PDF forms for this, and this. So we have actually provided it here, but you should only use it for guidance. You should not use it in here to fill these out because these are NSF wants you to fill these out in a different place, which is the SAI and ENV. Now, when you start going through this, it actually tells you what all the different sections are, what you should replace, what you shouldn't replace. And remember, you can always ask the agent to do this for you. You can drag a file in and say, here's my title. Can you make this the title? Here's some information. Put this at the start date. You can literally talk to the agent and it will make changes in front of you. You can drag and drop the solicitation PDF and it will enter some of the information for you. Sometimes, by the way, for the key LaTeX users, as you can see, the different sections are in different text files, which makes sense. Similarly, if you write a book, you also see this. So in the main.tex, if you look in the editor, the way it's working is, the way that I've set it up is, there's more than one way to do this, is that you have these different text files, which are almost like different chapters of the proposal, right? Like project description, which is usually the main 15-page NSF thing. This is the key. This is what the reviewers read, right, when they're actually reviewing the proposal. Now, you can always say that, for example, I can drag this file here, or I can use @ right? And I can say that, within this file, right? So this is telling the agent that only look at this file. Within this file, can you create a simple boilerplate letter that expresses intent of collaboration between USA and like XYZ hospital or something like that on a project involving AI's use in like clinical applications, something like that. I'm just making this up, obviously. The more specific you are, the better it will be. But notice how it immediately reads the letters of collaboration because it's able to identify that this is the file you're talking about. And then it will replace it. It will try to do its work. While it's doing that, let's see, like over here, again, as you can see, it has actually replaced with, it's understood what it should be like. This, by the way, is not the correct format for NSF, right? I just wanted to illustrate that it is capable not just of writing, but of doing all kinds of changes. I can even say that, can you make a copy of @newreps.txt and write some research objectives in that copy? So again, while it's working on that, let's look at what figure it's produced. Okay, so remember, this was the figure where we said read the introduction. Now, this paper is very technical. It's actually on these things called signed networks, which I think about social networks where instead of friendships, you also have enmities. So let's say I don't like someone, I dislike someone, there would be a negative sign on the edge. And if I like someone, there would be a positive sign. So there are these kinds of networks. You see them in cryptocurrency, you see them in crime cartels and business networks, competitors versus collaborators, etc. Right? So this is the figure that was able to produce. Now, you may or may not choose to use this figure. You can see there's grid over here, which probably we don't want, right? The D is very simple. Maybe we want to remove it, but it gives you some ideas. This is very useful for grants also. And you can actually refine the figure. So if you're happy with this, you can add to the project. If you're not happy with this, you can refine it. So I can say, can you remove panel D and remove the grid in the background so that it is plain white? So again, while it's working on this, let's go to the letters of collaboration, which was over here. Now, again, over here, right, it could run into errors. If it does, we keep improving this. We want to get to a place where there will never be an error, right? But LaTeX is code, and for complicated kind of packages like this, you will see an error. So we don't want to hide that from you. Just like overleaf, there will be errors. But as you can see, over here, right, you can always go to the source if it's not able to figure out. Like over here, there's this title. Sorry, I just made it much bigger, right? This seems to be causing a problem over here for some reason. I can ask it, going to the, to the main.tech PDF, ask agent. I can also add my own thing. There's still a problem here. Now, while it's doing that, let's see what it's done with our figure. Okay, so it didn't quite understand what I meant by pane D. I wanted it to remove this, but notice how it did remove all the grids, right? So here it didn't remove this part. So I can, I'll just ask it one more time that let's just have A, B, and C. Can you remove the flow chart? Okay, let's see what's going wrong over here. There's something going wrong over here. So I'm going to comment this out and see if that works or not. And let's see, in the letters of collaboration, okay, let me just go to the table of contents over here. All right. By the way, that's another neat feature that you'll sort of see where you can go to the editor and double click or click on go to PDF. Over here, if you double click, it will take you to the right place. So you can see over here, we do have, it did give me the letter of collaboration. There was some problem towards the end, most likely because we had to import a package over there. So, some familiarity with LaTeX is useful here, as you can see. Because once in a while there will be errors. Sometimes it will resolve the errors. Sometimes you will need to figure out what the error is, especially in complex packages. In that sense, it's not completely different from overleaf, but we are continuously working to make sure that we are able to get it to resolve errors if they occur inside the LaTeX on its own. So, if you're familiar with LaTeX, I think you will be able to figure out when it runs into the error if it's not able to solve it itself. All right, so going back to the signed one, Okay, it still didn't understand. And so this, also shows you the limitations of the language model itself. Which is, it kind of brought back the D, and it thought I was asking it to modify the flowchart. So it says over here A, B, and C, but in fact the D is still there. So this should convince you, by the way, that but this is not a fake demo. There are lots of things that are going well, and then there are other things where the language model is fighting back, as we like to say. Um, the one way that we can do this is just the panel D is still there. Could you revise and could you recheck? Or let me see, the panel D is still there. Let's just focus on the networks and not the box diagram. So I'm trying to tell it in a different way. We'll see whether it works or not. But I do want to say that unlike the related work, the image generation is based on the Paper Nano Banana, which is Google's model. So as that improves more and more, it will also reflect here, but we cannot do anything more than what that language model can do. So that's just something to be aware of. But we do give you direct access to that model. So you're not generating the figure, then downloading it and bringing it here. So that's maybe the way to think about it. Again, it might work for you in some papers and grants. In others, you might just get frustrated and decide that, I've tried 3 or 4 times. It's not understanding what I want. Let me actually go and create my own figure. That's the default that we rely on anyways. So I'll stop here. I think I know that was a whirlwind of different things. And I know we have 9 minutes left, but I hope that all of you use it. And I'm trying to look at the chat now to see if there are any questions I can maybe answer. But okay, so yeah, Jess, if you were referring to the NIH template, I will make that available next week. We are working on it. And then we'll send it to you. And if something is not right over there, do let us know, because we want to try and create the perfect NIH template for you that you could use. But yes, yes.
Thank you, Maya. Any question from the from the room? Or any question online? I do have a question, and I actually really like the UI and the format because I myself heavily use Overleaf. So one
Mhm.
of the function that I like Overleaf is if I invite other collaborator to my project, they can leave comment. They can highlight a part that they think might have problem, have some concern, and they leave comment. So can you, your app also be able to do that?
It's a great question. So right now we haven't implemented the comment feature on the LaTeX, but one way that if you want to resolve that in a way, the workaround that I would recommend for now is that you could, just like an overleaf, one of the ways that you can do that is to just maybe have a placeholder, where let's say I say, this is uh, reduce length to 100 words or something like that, or shorten. What you can then do is that you can always ask the agent to see that, hey, what are the comments that were left behind, by this person, by MK, and it will actually give you a summary of where they left it behind. So that's a workaround. The comment feature will be coming in a month or two. We haven't yet implemented it. In here. So that is something that is there in Overleaf, but is not here, which is, I think the feature you're talking about is that, I can, like this one, right? Where I can add a comment and then the
Correct.
other person can, yeah. So this one, it's coming. It's not here yet. We did implement it in our other interface, which I'll just very briefly talk about in just a minute, if I may. It's that when you actually create a project in Grail, you can pick this plain editor. This is for those of you who may just want to brainstorm but not want to use LaTeX, right? So this one is what it will do is it will take you to a plain text editor. This does support comments, but the LaTeX editor is coming. We're kind of it's on our plate for the next month, I would say. So this is like a plain, Substack editor. This agent cannot directly modify the editor, just like Gemini. It will actually give you suggestions, but it can't directly modify the editor. But in here, we do have the comment feature. So, if I type something in, um, if I want, I can just put a comment, um, and it will appear. So when I share it, the other person can see my comment. So it's there on this plain editor, but it's not there on the LaTeX editor yet, but it's coming. Yeah.
Thank you. So another question. So, I'm curious. Maybe Joe, you go first. Uh,
Yeah, thank you. I guess the other question that I have is, I know, for example, now USC is offering ChatGPT to the students in an edu version that is self-contained. So whatever it is that we're inputting into the model is not being utilized to train the models. Is it the same, like if we use data that still hasn't been published, that is proprietary, how does that
Correct.
work? Yeah,
So yes, absolutely. Your data stays private. This is very important to us. So we say it is right over here. It's small, but it is there, everywhere you will see it. So your data and your IP is totally yours. And we do this by, we have kind of an enterprise level model where your data cannot be used for training, just like with the ChatGPT. So yes, all IP belongs to you, and it will not be leaked or will not be sent out to it cannot be used to train any model.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is, like nowadays everyone know that the model keep updating. So I'm curious, like which base model you use, and the second, will you like keep updating your underlying LLMs that support the system?
Yes. So the answer to the second question is yes, under the assumption that we do a thorough test and we find that it works well. Because with the latest models, one of the things that we find is that sometimes they are very slow. Um, and we want a certain level of speed. So we want to balance the latest model with the speed. And also the other thing is that you might have seen, like, for example, the Gemini and some of these models come out in preview, right? So they say the word preview. It turns out, for the regular user, it does not affect, you don't see the difference. But we have hundreds of users right now on the platform. And so in preview mode, when a lot of requests are being sent to the base model, it can break if it's in preview. So our models are actually not on preview, they are production level models. One of the reasons that why we think the platform is strong is because it uses a combination of base models. So, I don't mind revealing it over here. So for the web search and for this chat, we use Gemini because we think that because of the access to Google, the web search is very strong for Gemini. So whenever you issue a web search, where you say, hey, can you find me, which you can also do on the LaTeX, that can you, search I'll just do this on a new conversation. Can you search the web and find me, news on network science, something, I mean, I'll just type something like that, even though it doesn't make sense. Here, this, when it does a web search, it will go to Gemini, right? So this way you're leveraging Google. For writing, we actually use a Claude model. We don't use the very best one because the very best one is actually very good for coding, but it is not as good for academic writing. We use one of the best ones. It's among the 2 or 3 latest models, but not the very best one. Now, if we find that it gets fast enough, and it is very good for writing, we will switch and update. Absolutely. Um, and for the images, the best model so far that we have found, despite its limitations, and I think most people in the community also agree in this, is the paper nano banana. And so that is also a Google model. Um, so that is kind of so we use a group of models to do what we're doing. The related work is based on a proprietary algorithm. It uses a language model, but it's not, the output is not coming from a language model. It's coming from the database. That's why we're able to claim that the hallucinations are not there. So we use different models and different things, based on which one is best for what and how it's balanced and how much can it handle scale. Um, One feature that is coming again in about a month is that you will be able to choose your own language model. And so we will allow you this. This is coming in about a month to month and a half. But right now, this is kind of the combination of models on which the whole platform is based.
I see. Cool. Thank you so much. Any other question? Okay, so I think let's call this an end, and thank you again for this interesting talk.
All right, thank you so much. Please write to us directly if there are any questions, feedback requests, if you run into any problems, all of that. We are just here, and we hope that you will go on to create great things with the platform.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.